Welcome to the Getting High on Leadership series featuring Paul Karasik. Paul is one of America's top management consultants helping leaders succeed. He is the author of 9 books, including Sweet Persuasion and Brilliant Thoughts and Provocative Questions. His insights appear regularly in major publications, and he is one of the most sought-after executive coaches. Paul founded the American Seminar Leaders Association and the Psychedelic Institute of Los Angeles. He is a popular speaker at national conferences and has been on stages across all 50 states and internationally. Paul's work addresses the question, how can we transform conflict in business into collaboration? With decades of experience in management, leadership, and psychedelics, he brings a unique perspective on personal and societal growth. In this series, we'll be discussing his latest book, Getting High on Leadership, The Leader's Guide to Higher Consciousness. We'll be exploring the concepts, techniques, and mindset required to revolutionize leadership. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the series. My name is Sanchez, your host, and we are joined by Paul Karasik, the author of Getting High on Leadership. As we make our way through the book, we are spending some time in each section discussing conscious leadership, and today's section is called What's Important to You. It can be found on page 68. So please join us and follow along for the conversation. Paul, what's important to you? Or what should be important to a leader? Why is that important for one to decide?
Yeah, we talked about values. These are the guideposts for making decisions so that each person becomes empowered to make the right decisions. And in leadership, that's really that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to create leaders within your own group that can act independently and make the right decisions to drive us to our appointed goal or whatever we want to accomplish. So
you really want to have those underlying values defined, huh?
You need to define them. Yeah, you need to say them. So in my management consulting company, we had a few values. One of them was fun. Fun. That was one of our values. It was like, if we're not having fun, then what are we doing? You know, like business can be fun, making money can be fun. All this stuff can be fun. So, and it should be. That's a guiding. Another one was learning. I'm basically, as a consultant, I'm a teacher a lot of the times, either one-on-one or in groups or whatever the case. But I need to have that as a value for myself, learning. Like if learning is so good, I should be doing it too.
Kind of embody those values or a little bit of practicing what you preach, right?
Yeah, I have to embody those values. And, I remember I had a person working for me in marketing and, he thought he knew everything. And I had to fire him. He wasn't bad at what he did, but I had to fire him because it didn't represent our company properly. As a learning company, then we all have to be learning. We all have to be open. We all have to be able to say, as I said in previous chapters, I don't know. We all have to admit that there's a greater intelligence of consciousness that's beyond us, right? That's critical. So for me, how can I have this dichotomy of working for me and yet you think you know everything? And that's not a good place. What's a good place? Curious.
Yeah.
If you bring up an idea, like, how do you do that? Or could this really work? Or opening. There's an expression in Zen called beginner's mind, right? So that's what I was saying that we need to have. Long story short, it doesn't matter what your values are, but the team has to be aligned with those values. And we have to choose them as a team. And I've done this exercise that's represented on page 68 in the book many, many times with groups. And it's really a fascinating discussion. And I'd encourage anybody that's, on this podcast or reading the book to begin to explore that with yourself and also with the team. So this chapter is actually an exercise more than a chapter. An exercise in saying, looking at these values, and by the way, I don't think every value is on this page. There's probably many, many more. But
That would
it's
be a whole new book in and of itself.
yeah, like all the different values. But the truth is, what's important to me? That's the question I have to ask. In this enterprise, in this leadership position, on this team, what is most important?
Would you recommend a leader, do that first for themselves before trying to do this in a larger setting or
Yeah.
with a team? That way that you kind of know your own personal values first. That way you can contribute those to whatever those team values may be. Because I imagine those can change too based on the scale or setting.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, you have to. Usually, I find most leaders are pretty connected to their values.
That's kind of what's gotten them so far, or what's maybe driven them to those leadership
Yeah,
opportunities, huh?
yeah. So they'll be like hard work, for example. That's a
Yeah.
value. Hard work is a value. Not all companies have that as a value. A lot of companies that go into is like, wow, they don't work at all here. But hard work is a value, and usually the leader embodies that, and that's how they got to that position, by working hard, learning technical things, so on and so forth. But yeah,
So having
that
those values defined for you lets you help your projects and teams get those values
Yeah.
defined, and that creates that superstructure, substructure that you need to build on, right? You can't have that success, or you can't have that that invisible boat from the previous sections. That's not going to work without all of your rowers having at least some idea of the underlying values of that boat, to really fall in line and get the job done.
yeah,
And then, to further connect some of the previous chapters, in conveying these values. So deciding on them or having them set isn't really the end of the story, is it?
no, that's why we do this as an exercise. And you're right. First, the leader should get clear on one or two or three, whatever, 5 or 10, doesn't matter, but get clear on what's important, and then open it up to the group. Because a lot of times the group has a personality of itself, but it has its own thing, its own personality, the way people relate, the way they, banter, different teams, different vibes. I mean, I've worked with so many different teams over the years, and drastically different,
Yeah, even in the same industry, right? Or trying to accomplish the same goal.
So I would, to do this exercise effectively, first of all, I would say to myself, what are my values? And then I would go to the team and do an exercise with a page like this. And this is what we actually do in our workshop. So it would be, we would hone it down to what are the values that most people are embedded in, and then hone that down further to come up with 3 to 5 key ones. Sometimes things fold into one another, like helping might be a value, but service is also kind of the same value. So we would say
you kind of eliminate some to really simplify down that funnel.
We would condense them, exactly. We would condense them down to that 3 to 5. But we should be able to know what those values are.
Yes.
Like I said, with my company, people knew the values. When people know the values and can recite them and are, it changes the complexion of the team, and it changes the culture of the team. So, really to put a bow on this particular chapter is, now let's define it. Now that we understand what values are, now that we understand the importance of values in accomplishing things in the real world, in real time, let's actually go through the process. And this chapter gives us an opportunity to kind of think about what are our real values that I as a leader am really embedded in, and how well am I communicating it, and is there any discrepancies with the team itself? Is my value of hard work at odds, with the team that's in a work from home type of vibe, and maybe not not in that zone of work hard, perseverance, more work a little bit and then check the mail or something, like, maybe a
Got to find
different,
that connection.
yeah, that different connection. You got to find work with the team to let's get our rallying cry. Let's get our flag to stand for these values. And not all of them may be your value as a leader, and not all of them may be all for everybody, but combined, we have covers pretty much what everybody's going to use as decision-making values when they're out there in the field. And definitely I'd like everybody who's a leader, even if you can't do the exercise with your team, to get clear for yourself. Get clear for yourself. What are
Start
those
somewhere,
values
right?
that are immutable no matter what happens? When you get to a decision making of how do I handle this, what's the value that's going to determine which way I go with this particular situation. And a lot of this is communicated subtly, but like you mentioned, we need to do it in a more formal way. I like this stuff written down personally, and to see it on a page. But sometimes companies or organizations think, well, that's what it is. And what I'm saying to you, no, that's just the physical representation. It's what you're carrying in your mind and your heart every day. That's the real value, not what you write on the page. Because you could write on the page customer service and have the worst customer service in the world.
Just because you have this very beautiful values list that nobody
it's
sees.
like, we take care of the customer first, blah, blah, blah. And then I call, it's like, no, we can't do that. Hang up on me. Or put me on hold for 25 minutes and all the other atrocities that happen in that area. So
I think that's well put, Paul. And I think I do agree. For anyone listening, watching, we want to have the values just explicitly defined. Start with yourself, move them out to the team. Don't be afraid to really take this as an exercise. Put your own values on a wall or use sticky notes to get that done digitally or physically. And we appreciate you watching and listening. And thank you again for following along in the series. You can always find the ebook below in the link and join us on the next episode. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Getting High on Leadership series. If you have any questions, you can comment below or send them in via email to paul@paulkarasik.com. Follow him on Instagram at PK_theconversation. Find out more at wholesalerinstitute.com and psychedelic-awakening.com. The Getting High on Leadership series is produced by Rob Sanchez and Apartment 113, which can be found at apartment113.com and followed on Instagram at APT_113.